Admitted, Disney. It's time to scrap Snow White and fire Rachel Ziegler.
No!
Disney CEO Bob Iger and his top executives are reportedly furious over a major blunder, one that could spell disaster for the company. So, what went wrong? First, they attempted to revamp Snow White to fit their modern DEI agenda. But their biggest mistake? Casting Rachel Ziegler in the lead role. Now, with the film just months away from release, they've realized there's no turning back. Key marketing for this movie has been anything but subtle. Ziegler has openly championed a radical departure from the classic tale, promising a Snow White who won't wait for Prince Charming but will instead be a self-sufficient girl boss. Sounds woke, right? But here's the real issue. Disney has stripped away the very essence of what made Snow White a timeless classic. Think back to the original animated film, a sweet, gentle 13-year-old girl with a voice like a songbird, her softness perfectly complementing the rough and rowdy dwarfs. The dynamic between her delicate strength and their rugged charm was part of the magic. And let's not forget the prince, a love-struck young man whose fateful kiss awakens Snow White. But in this new version, not so much. Ziegler has hinted that the prince might be cut entirely, dismissing him as nothing more than a stalker. Disney's modernized take is charging ahead, without one of the most defining elements of the story.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
The Snow White trailer, unveiled before Wicked, is already sparking division among audiences. And it's easy to see why. From the heavy CGI alone, you can feel the drastic shift in direction. Can it really be called live action if nearly every scene is built inside a computer? The dwarfs, once full of rustic charm and rough-edged humor, are now CGI creations, stripped of the human spark that made them so memorable. Originally envisioned as a diverse cast of unique personalities, this digital crew just doesn't carry the same weight. Instead, what's left feels hollow, an artificial gloss that fails to resonate with fans. And while we're on the topic of CGI, there's another major issue: the challenge of acting in a world that isn't real. We've seen this struggle before. In The Little Mermaid, Halle Bailey had to interact with animatronic sea creatures or, worse, actors pretending to be fish. How do you deliver an authentic performance when your co-stars are tennis balls and green screens? This could be a major problem for Rachel Ziegler's Snow White. While the film is technically live action, it may end up feeling more like a lifeless digital production. Without real chemistry to bounce off, her performance risks falling flat. Just another actor lost in the CGI void.
Rachel Ziegler doesn't really do the big things like love, kindness, or regret. But when it comes to hate, oh boy. Hate, that's her jam, and she just spread it all over Instagram for the world to see.
Of course, the elephant in the room is Rachel Ziegler herself. If Disney thought they could win over traditional audiences with an empowered Snow White, they clearly didn't anticipate the backlash from her outspoken political stance. Ziegler's social media outbursts, including targeting Trump supporters and even declaring they should never know peace, haven't exactly embodied the beloved, family-friendly Disney spirit. And when she finally apologized, it didn't come across as genuine remorse. It felt like pure damage control. Disney may have hoped for a fresh, modern princess, but instead, they've found themselves tangled in controversy.
Why? And I gotta tell you, the movie is already dead on arrival. That's because Hollywood's new evil queen, Rachel Ziegler, just cursed 76 million Americans with her heartfelt message. She said, "May you never know peace." And all because you voted for Trump.
Rachel Ziegler seems to have a talent for tanking billion-dollar franchises, and her own career along with them. Ever since she openly trashed the Snow White remake, producers have been steering clear, and she hasn't landed a major project in 2 years. Her reputation now comes with a warning label. Proceed with caution. This project might flop. Disney set out to modernize Snow White, but it seems they've veered too far. What they risk losing isn't just nostalgia, it's the delicate balance that made fairy tales timeless. The old Snow White was a blend of fantasy, charm, and a moral lesson that resonated across generations. This new version? A symbol of modern, empowered feminism. One that some celebrate but many find hard to connect with. And as much as Disney tries to spin this as a progressive step forward, fans who cherish the subtle magic of the original are feeling left behind. The trailer offers only vague glimpses of the story, with no clear promise of a compelling narrative. Add in Zegler's controversial political rants, and Disney faces an even tougher battle to win back skeptical hearts. This isn't just about Snow White, it's part of a larger trend in Disney's live-action strategy. Instead of preserving the heart of beloved classics, they overlay them with modern ideological messaging. What's meant to be progressive and empowering often ends up feeling like a box-checking exercise rather than a story with real depth. The result? A cinematic patchwork that's neither original nor emotionally resonant. Looking at the original Snow White, it wasn't just a fairy tale, it was a profound coming-of-age story. Storytelling expert Jonathan Pago once pointed out that Snow White represents a young woman navigating the complexities of life. The dwarfs, with their rough masculinity, symbolize men who, while kind, don't quite measure up as partners. And the prince? He isn't just a love interest, he's a symbol of hope, growth, and the idea that love is something earned, not just given. The problem with modern reinterpretations isn't the notion of a prince rescuing a princess, it's how that idea is framed. The original Snow White didn't teach women to be passive. It taught them to never settle for less than they deserve. In contrast, today's feminist reimaginings often strip away the nuance, reducing complex narratives to simple, one-dimensional empowerment tropes. At the end of the day, Disney is betting big on a Snow White that speaks to modern audiences, but at the risk of alienating those who loved the story in the first place. Will this gamble pay off, or will it be yet another cautionary tale for Hollywood?
Going to completely flop. And I think you're right. They're abandoning the classic, story framework for this girl bossified version. People are tired of that. People are tired of live action remakes generally. It's tough because every time they do make a new movie that's original, it's kind of following the same woke narratives that are actually unoriginal because they're pre-scripted to follow this woke ideology.
In the original film, Snow White's strength wasn't about being physically tough or rebellious. It was in her kindness, resilience, and ability to inspire those around her. She faced trials with grace, proving that true power doesn't always come from swinging a sword or defying tradition. But in this new version, Disney seems desperate to push a forced feminist archetype, turning Snow White into something she was never meant to be. And it's not just the story suffering, it's the filmmaking itself. Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs wasn't just a classic, it was a groundbreaking achievement in animation. Made on a $1.5 million budget, a fortune at the time, the film was a labor of love, nearly bankrupting the studio before becoming an immortal masterpiece. Fast forward to today, and despite a budget in the hundreds of millions, all that passion and artistry have been traded for flashy CGI and lifeless spectacle. Take the runtime as an example. The original Snow White was a tightly paced 83 minutes. Every scene mattered. Every moment had heart. The live-action remake? It's ballooning past 2 hours, padded with filler that does little more than push a modern agenda. And the irony? Despite all that extra content, the film still lacks the depth and sincerity that made the original so beloved. For all the cutting-edge effects and big-budget production, what's missing is the magic, the human touch that made Walt's version feel timeless. Instead of a beautifully crafted fairy tale, we're left with a CGI-heavy spectacle that swaps creativity for political messaging. And then there are the dwarfs. Once a group of distinct, lovable personalities who added humor and warmth, they've now been reduced to generic CGI placeholders, visually polished, yet utterly forgettable. At the end of the day, Snow White wasn't just about a princess. It was about heart, charm, and storytelling that stood the test of time. But Disney's remake? It's looking more like a cautionary tale of what happens when ideology takes priority over imagination.
It's tough because every time they do make a new movie that's original, it's kind of following the same woke narratives that are actually unoriginal because they're pre-scripted to follow this woke ideology. And then anything that they make as a remake, they inject that same ideology in.
Disney's gamble on this new Snow White is one that may ultimately backfire. This isn't just an update. It's a complete reimagining that strips away the very essence of what made the original so beloved. Sure, it boasts a massive budget, CGI spectacle, and modern themes. But does it still have the heart that made Snow White a timeless classic? Based on early reactions and what we've seen so far, the answer seems to be a resounding no. What do you think? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more takes on woke Hollywood projects like Snow White. See you in the next one.